Welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Danny Cannell. That's Bud Elliott. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and anywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. So many of y'all hanging out live. We always appreciate it. I know that you've had this circled because today is the beginning of a regular, put it on your calendar, 11 a.m. Eastern time on Thursdays, Locks with Cover 3. Now, call it something else. If your boss sees your calendar too, that's okay. But this is what we're going to do. Thanks to everybody for hanging out live. Make sure that you smash that subscribe, smash that like. Subscribers getting going in the chat, and there will be some special content for subscribers coming up here in the next couple of weeks as we count down to week 1. We got a lot to get to. We just did our pre-show meeting. We were throwing out our locks. How many you got? How many you got? How many you got? Well, look, we had no time for news and headlines, only time for us to get in. So we begin with a review of last year's win totals locks. Tom Fornelli. He went 7-4 overall. The wins were Michigan over 9.5, Arizona State under 6, Arizona over 2.5, Vanderbilt over 2.5 over by October, Northern Illinois under 7.5, Illinois over 4.5. The losses, Purdue under 7, Florida State under 7, Auburn over 6, and then UMass under 2.5. The Minutemen did get there, unlike your prediction. I know this is a long time ago, Tom, so you don't need to elaborate much. Looking back at it, what stings, what stands out, what are you proud of?
What stings the most is you didn't read off my Oklahoma State underwin. Why? You mad at me or something? You had
no, that was a lock agreement. That's just an honest mistake.
Skipped right over it. Wow. I mean, obviously, I picked Purdue to finish under 7, and they ended up winning the Big Ten West. So I feel like that was the one I was way off on. Florida State won 10 games. Other than that, I mean, I feel good about all those picks. I'd make them again today.
Yeah, Tom was the only one with a pick in the SEC West. Look at all these locks right here. Everyone steered clear of the SEC West except for Tom. He was the only one brave enough to venture into that division. Took an L, though. All right, I went 6-2. The wins were Penn State over 9.5, Oklahoma State under 8.5 with Tom. I got North Carolina over 7.5, Arizona State under 6, Arizona over 2.5, and Vanderbilt over 2.5. NC State over 8.5 was a loss. Tennessee under 8 was a loss. And as producer Jordan roasted me rightly, the Tennessee under 8 was the biggest L. I mean, that is the most egg on my face that I'm going to have here. Of course, they had a tremendous season and well exceeded that. As passionate as I was saying that they weren't going to win 8 games, I was right. They won more than 8 games. So congrats to the Vols. Bad for me. 6-2 overall ain't bad. Danny, Michigan over 9.5. You were also in on that one. Other wins were Vanderbilt over 2.5, Kansas over 2.5, and Texas under 8.5. You got a push on the Utah over 9 as they finished with 9 regular season wins. The losses were Oklahoma State over 8.5. You were on the other side of that bar fight. USC under 9.5, NC State over 8.5, and Clemson over 10.5. 4-4-1. What are the notes? What are we looking for as we go into a new season?
Last year sucked. That's what I take away from that, and it's not going to happen again. That's all I know.
All right, love it.
So pissed.
But,
point of order before we get to Bud.
Yeah,
UMass finished 1-11 last year. I won that bet. I was 8-3.
Ooh.
I don't know why that was marked out as a loss. I am being disrespected in this show today, and I will have my revenge.
Stop the steal.
Stop the steal.
All right, Bud.
Apparently, YouTube is monitoring content now, so we may need to
be careful with.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to get flagged. I want to use these strikes, make them count.
All right.
Allegedly.
All right, Bud had 16 locks and brought home 12 winners. He was in on Michigan over 9.5, TCU over 6.5, all the way to the window.
Did I get a double win since they won 13 ball games?
No, because the 13th was not in the regular season.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. TCU over 6.5, Texas under 8.5, Virginia under 7. Yikes. Missouri over 5, Air Force over 8.5, Troy over 5, and Troy boy. You had 5.5. Wow. San Jose State over 6, SMU over 6.5, Nevada under 4.5, Arkansas State under 5, FAU under 6.5. Those were all unfurled in a sicko mode that if you just blindly followed them, it went like 7-1 on sicko picks. Again, 12-4 overall. The only losses were UNC under 7.5, USC under 9.5, NC State over 8.5, and then Toledo over 8. Notes as you look ahead to 2023.
Definitely will never be putting Toledo over on my card ever again because I cannot trust that staff to actually play their players in the final 2 games of the year once they've clinched once they've already clinched the division. So Nevada with the worst sweat ever. Like they should have started 0-2 and they were like +9 in turnover ratio through 2 games. So that was great. Really was feeling good there after those first 2 complete BS wins they had. But yeah, like it was a fun year. I'm excited to do it again. The win totals came out a little bit earlier this year, so I don't have 16. Or how many I have? Yeah, I don't have 16 this year, but maybe I'll get there if I like you guys and do a little lock agreement. And totally agree with Tom. 8-3, bro, killing it. What did we go overall? 8-6, 14, 8. I mean, we went 30-5. I mean, like 30-13 as a show. That doesn't suck, y'all.
No. Here we go. Do we post these picks anywhere? Here on the podcast, youtube.com/cover3. Come screenshot it. That's it's a great way if you need to do it before you head on up to your local sports book. All right. That means that it's time. It's time to hear the song. So gentlemen, are you ready for the first time in 2023 to lock it up?
Since 2005, the under in games between service academies is 40-9-1.
Give me an over in this one as well. A little 2-for-1 special.
I was in Sicko last week. Y'all were watching videos. I was live betting the hell out of UL in Kentucky.
My blue plate special 5-star locks are coming.
5-star master lock. Lock it up. These locks.
I'm living and dying every point, every coverage.
All right, Bud, you've got the honors on the tee box. Why don't you just go ahead and get it going? We'll try to keep everybody about even. Obviously, we'll get lock agreements, lock fights that will end up fleshing out the cards as well. But with a blank slate as we get started, I will let you, Mr. Elliott, take us where you want to go.
Yeah, I'm just going to go to one that we discussed about like 24 hours ago, literally on this show. Give me Florida over 5.5. I don't have great aspirations for this football team, but I have seen Billy Napier successfully, achieve goals with this sort of bully ball formula. I like at least some of their matchups. As we talked about, the road game at Missouri late in the year when it's sandwiched between a trip to Baton Rouge and coming home to play the Seminoles. So there is definitely like a kind of a, I don't think this is like a blind betting angle, but you should probably consider it since it's college kids and it's kind of a pain in the ass to travel to Columbia, Missouri. But that one scares me a little bit. I think Graham Mertz's track record is baked into this number already. And I think most of the folks making the argument for under are like, well, Graham Mertz sucks. I'm like, yeah, well, we have eyes. We have data. We know, like, it's priced in. If he didn't suck, they wouldn't be 5.5. So, and I'm not really totally convinced he sucks with what they're asking him to do. Give me Florida over 5.5.
Anybody else in on this one?
Bam, lock it up. Gator Dan is back. Hopefully you got that in the chat yesterday because I had to bounce early and I said I was on the Florida over as well. Totally agree with you. I think this is the time to buy. I think it's 6-6 is probably the likely record. I don't think they go 5-7. I think Graham Mertz brings a little more stability than they had even from Anthony Richardson. I mean, Anthony Richardson was very hot or very cold. Clearly, you don't get the upside, but I don't think you get those disastrous games or disastrous throws at times. So I think they're going to be a little more physical. Year 2, I think you'll see a jump in the just overall success of this team. It's a process. You have to weed out some guys that don't want to be there, get guys that do. I think the Gators will be better this year.
Are they over by October?
Whoa. What is Cam Rising playing? Utah's probably favored, even if Rising
none of us
is
would
not
be
playing.
shocked if they went in there and it was ugly, an ugly game, and they came out the winners. I don't think any of us would be shocked by that.
Utah is definitely favored if Cam Rising is not playing. Like that line opened 10. The speculation as to whether he's playing has driven it down to like 7.5, 8.
So
Cam
that's a
Rising is
total
not a
Big Ten.
10-point. Like he's not a 10-point guy. Like I like him, but there ain't no way.
Well, here's my follow-up on Graham Mertz. People might be arguing Graham Mertz stinks, Graham Mertz stinks. Like, where does he fall in the SEC starting quarterbacks? Because I don't think he's last. I don't think he's 14th.
You think he's top 10?
I think he would start for Missouri.
I think he would start for Missouri as well.
You think he would start for Auburn? Because I kind of do.
Ooh.
Him or Peyton Thorne? Tom, you have seen a lot of this.
I would go Thorne.
By a lot.
Not like emphatically, but I would give Thorne a slight edge because I feel like he can at least get outside the numbers more than I think Mertz can with his throws.
Not the worst in the SEC. Not in the bottom 5 of Power 5 starters. We're not talking about just a total negative across the board. Question is, how good is he going to be?
Yeah, part of the thing Mertz has to deal with is living up to the hype of both his recruit ranking and his first game. Like he has just not lived up to that and he gets held to a different standard. I think overall he's not nearly that bad. He's just not very good.
Pride of Overland Park, Kansas. Dennis Dodd saw him first. Always remember, Dennis saw him first. All right, Tom. We got the Knoll boys. Mr. Garnett, Mr. Gold already on the board. Why don't you take us somewhere else?
All right, I'm going to go with one that I was very emphatic about when we did the Big Ten East show a couple weeks ago, and I said this team is going bowling. Their win total is only 4.5. I feel very good about this one. We talked about it 2 years ago. Michigan State won 11 games, kind of played way over its skis, way over its numbers. Last year, I think they underperformed their record underachieved compared to how they performed. I know they lost some key guys. I know that we just talked about Peyton Thorne. I know Keon Coleman is gone. But I think overall, this is a roster that is much better than a 4-8 team. I think this team is at least going 5-7. I've got them going 6-6. So give me Michigan State over 4.5.
Is there a team that we've been better on as far as like just nailing 2 years in a row? Because we all, I think, either locked up or seriously loved Michigan State over in 21. And then we're all like, they're not those guys. Like they built a team, not a program in 22. Discipline. I need to make the graphic fit on the screen. We talked about this in show prep.
But you
like it. I'm not.
You would potentially go the other side.
I'm not betting under. No,
Okay.
No. I would agree with Tom if I had to.
Let me stay right there in the Big Ten, because sometimes I think that you have an opportunity, as long as we are still here in division play, which of course is not going to last for much longer. But if you are generally high on other teams, then maybe that the way the math goes, some other team is not going to win as many games. And so, I know it's crazy, bud. That's the way that it works.
Not for all shows. not for all shows. I'm telling you what. Me and Jason Kirk used to sit there and track some of these dudes who would have 11 overs and 300 in one conference. And if you had an app that would serve each fan base differently, ain't nobody would ever know that what you picked in these other team videos. I'm telling you what.
Zero-sum game is the way it works. So if I am not going to, I believe that Wisconsin is going to snap back to the world. And while everyone roasted me for going under on Iowa, I still think Iowa is going to be very good. I mean, I was watching that scrimmage highlight before Cade McNamara had that little muscle thing. His first 2 passes in the open scrimmage were a 30-yard completion and a 45-yard completion. Mm-hmm. Like Cade McNamara is out here trying to make sure that Brian Ferentz gets himself to 300 points. So if I'm liking where Wisconsin's going to be, if I do believe that the Iowa offense is going to be there, if I think that Matt Rule is going to bring some competency to Nebraska, then I'm not going to sell any of my Illinois stock. Where are these losses coming from? They're coming from Minnesota, because the Golden Gophers are going under 7. They draw Michigan and Ohio State from the other division. They've got a non-conference road trip to UNC, and their toss-ups include games at Iowa and at Purdue. Like, sure, you're going to be able to get Northwestern, Louisiana, Eastern Michigan, but that Michigan State team that Tom just talked about and Bud is kind of high on, Michigan State's on that schedule too. I think that we are looking at a quarterback that is not quite ready to live up to the highest projections. and some lost skill talent, included Mo Ibrahim. So I'm going Minnesota. I had way too many overs. I've got a couple unders. This is one of them. We'll get started with it. Minnesota under 7 wins.
I can get you in Minnesota under 7.5, and I know that because I am with you. Lock agreement. Gophers under 7.5. And again, it's not really about the team as much as it's about their schedule, and some don't have as much confidence in their QB. So I think that combined with what they lost, to combine with who they have to play, it is going to be very tough for them to get to 8 wins this year. So yeah, lock it up.
Yeah, I'm not locking agreeing this, but I do think if you run the distributions, like the 7.5 is one of those ones that's actually worth paying for. Because 7 is going to come up really often. I don't see the bottom falling out of this team.
Yeah, the bottom ain't going to fall out, but 6 wins is right there in the middle of the distribution too.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. That's what I'm saying. Like Tom getting a 7.5 there, I think is
I think it's minus 150 something, but I'll pay it.
Yeah. By the way, we should not be picking stuff that's like minus 200. Like there's like some like minus 190 stuff. Like for record keeping, that's feels like cheating.
I was cutting off at like minus 160. Like there was I've got some potential for minus 180 and minus 200 that I'm leaving on the side and not including in my pick.
Yeah, I cut mine at like 35. But
okay.
Yeah,
well,
I think that's fine.
We can discuss it on a pick by pick basis. All right, everyone has a little bit on the board, which means now's a great time to say, coming up on the other side, more of our win totals locks next.
We don't get a try run, we only get one life. So enjoy the ride. Just live your life, one day at a time. Enjoy the ride.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, rolling out our win totals locks for 2023. Danny, where do you want to go next?
All right, let's do it. You guys are in the Big Ten West. I'll stay there. It's one that we talked about a little bit the other day. I shopped around, found a pretty good number on this one. As somebody who went 4-4-1, I'm shopping around. I don't care if I have to pay up. I need some winners out there. Thank God for Bet Rivers. Let's go. I'm going to have to open an account with some of these numbers that I saw. The Iowa Hawkeyes, I found them at 8. I'm going over all day long. As bad as the quarterback play was, I think one of the bigger, moves this offseason was getting Cade McNamara out there. And I love Chip's analysis there, talking a little bit about what we've seen already from him when he steps under center. I think the offense will be significantly better and more balanced. It should be. It shouldn't be as atrocious as it was last year. I'm telling you, Kirk Ferentz just churns out teams that have an identity. Phil Parker, one of the better defensive coordinators in the game. Schedule, I think it sets up favorable. I don't know about you guys, but every time Iowa State popped up there, I know it's a rivalry game. I think Iowa State is in kind of more trouble than Iowa with some of the gambling stuff that's going on. Road game against Penn State could be tough. Wisconsin on the road could be tough. But the rest of them, I see them winning. I think this has push protection all over it. If I can get it at 8, I'm going over all day long.
Lock agreement.
Oh,
boy, I better not be the cooler for Bud.
No, I think we're good on this one, man. We may be, but this may be a -1. Certainly push is within the realm of possibility on this. And there were some 7 and 7.5 earlier in this offseason, which was pretty choice. But that was again before the Iowa State suspensions came out. So, if they're missing as many starters as kind of the Twitter rumors have them missing, that's a fairly big deal to miss between a third and a quarter of your offense, or excuse me, of your team, not your offense. That would be really interesting. Yeah, man. Look, Rutgers is going to come into Kinnick and win. I have a hard time seeing that. At Nebraska, how much depth does Nebraska have late in the year? I kind of trust Iowa to have more depth there. At Wisconsin's definitely tough, but for really all the reasons Danny said, I trust them to play really good defense. I think they will play better on offense, and I'm going over.
All right.
I loved it at 7.5. Once it creeped up to 8, 8.5, I kind of just backed off of it. But it was on the card. It was more of a late cut.
I've got a couple basics on here.
What you got?
Penn State over 9.5. It's a double-digit win team. If you think that this team with one of the best 1-2 punches at running back with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, with we supposed to be an upgrade at quarterback with Drew Aller taking over, a couple good transfer portal pickups at wide receiver, a defense with Chop Robinson and another, like everybody in that front, man, the way that Manny Diaz has got this set up, they're going to be getting after it. They're going to be creating a lot of pressure and a lot of problems for opponents. A lot of production back, good, not a lot of questions. I mean, it's just a well-rounded football team. It's not like, the Georgia Bulldogs, which don't have a whole lot of questions. You have to really nitpick, but the caliber and the raw talent is a little higher. But it just looks really solid up and down the depth chart. And so, non-con it presents Power 5 opportunities, but not Power 5 opportunities that I think are going to trip them up. And, we've been asking what the tiebreaker scenarios are going to be if everybody goes 8-1 in conference play, and Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State are all beating each other, which, by the way, I think Ohio State is favored to win that because of the record of the cross-division opponents.
Yes, because Penn State has Northwestern, unless you think Northwestern is going to contribute like 3 conference wins, there's a high likelihood that Penn State would lose out in the tiebreaker to that.
Right, and Ohio State has the Wisconsin there to be able to really help them. Anyway, this is about Penn
Unless
State.
Illinois. If Illinois goes undefeated in the West,
true.
Well, then that's the one loss. Well, actually, that can't work. If Illinois loses one time, which is to Penn State, then maybe like the Illini can carry the Wildcats' terrible win-loss record, most likely.
We're that good. We'll have to carry Penn State too.
West Virginia, Delaware, UMass, like there's nothing there that's going to trip them up. The Ohio State and Michigan games, and of course they're at Maryland. That's the one that's the next dangerous one. But I feel confident that this is a 10-win team at minimum. I'm going to go Penn State over 9.5.
Did you guys read Feldman's freak list this year?
Yes,
I was going to mention this.
Yeah, he listed like 101 players, and there were like 8 or 9 Penn State players on the list.
He said he had to cut a couple.
Yeah,
I saw Singleton and Robinson. Who else?
Fashanu on.
Oh yeah, Olu
yeah.
Fashanu. Oh yeah, excuse me. I forgot one of the best.
There?
Yeah, one of the best tackles in the entire country is sitting there on that offensive line.
Abdul Carter was on. I mean, it is the starting unit on that team is nuts. The depth I feel confident about. We don't know for sure, but the starting units on that Penn State team is ridiculous this year.
Gosh, we don't have any fights yet.
I want to join Chip on this. Yeah, I'm not fighting this yet.
We're going to pick the entire Big Ten at this rate.
Well, I like the way
they need to be ready to go early, though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not fighting this. Like, West Virginia, Illinois, Iowa, all in the first 4 weeks is not nothing.
Sure.
You better
with
be clicking
a quarterback, we really don't know. I mean, expectations off the charts for Drew Aller that we just don't know. I'm not going to fight it because I kind of think they have so much talent, but I'm going to stay away.
All right. Let's go to Bud.
All right. So we already did an SEC. We did a Big Ten. I'm sure I got Gator fans all really, really pleased in the chat. Let's go to Tallahassee. I'm going over 9.5. I mean, look, I think that they have some real weapons on the outside with Wilson and Coleman. They have probably 7 offensive linemen that they feel deep about. I wasn't on a podcast the last time that happened in Tallahassee, so that's kind of rare. Really like what Jordan Travis has looked like. I think defensively they are. You guys know I think some of their defensive improvement last year was kind of fraudulent. I think they're much better defensively this year as far as talent. So I'm going to go over at 9.5. There are certainly scenarios in which you lose the big 2 games, but you take care of business in the other games. And there's also a scenario in which you win one of the big 2 or even 2 of the big 2 and give yourself some breathing room against this number. So give me the over 9.5 there in Tallahassee.
Doing it.
I mean, I can't I look like I'm riding its coattails because I keep just hopping on the agreement. But I look, it's highlighted right there.
Look at that.
Over, of course. Jeez. Are you guys ready for this? So ESPN put out their top 100 players. No school in the country has more than FSU. They have 6 in the top 100 players in college football. I think you can trust this team. I really do. Jordan, I think you trust the leadership. You trust the depth. They're finally starting to see a lot of the returns. I like this team a lot. I like the way it sets up for them. I don't think you have to, even if, like Bud said, even if they went 0 for 2, I still think they can handle their business and play their way back to the ACC championship game. I trust like the leadership and character of the players that came back to do something special, like bigger than themselves, bigger than an NFL career. They want to try to win a championship. I'm buying in.
Also, can we take a little bit of an issue with this ESPN list? There are only 6 offensive linemen in the top 100 players in the country. 6? Come on, guys. I mean,
nobody knows how to evaluate offensive linemen.
Yeah.
That's really all it boils down to.
I get it, but I'm also not going to like hold their, I can't say that I would do better, you know?
It's not sexy to list more like 10 or 11 offensive linemen, but
or it's just you put together a top 100 list, you're going to be able to get like, you know who those offensive linemen are, that scouts and teams and like the all conference types that are, rising to the top of the board. But it's difficult to evaluate offensive linemen for, unless you played the position or coached in football or you are a scout. But I think that your background probably helps a lot. But are your eyes on the offensive line all the time? Are you breaking down all 22?
No comment on having all 22 access, but definitely since we definitely don't
off the
have
record.
That.
Can you get me some?
Off the record, you got to coordinate the logins.
You guys don't have it yet?
No, we don't broadcast the games. So
I got to hook you guys up.
I guess we got it.
Please do.
Yeah. So do you get it as as part of the broadcast? Yeah.
All the broadcasting gets
counts.
It.
Yeah.
Well, when we have our alternate stream for Big Ten games in 2024, then we'll be ready to go. The Cover 3 podcast presents the Big Ten game of the week on YouTube.
I would love it.
Yeah. All right.
So I don't know. When I watch games, I watch the lines.
Yeah.
The camera takes you to where the ball goes eventually.
But
unless I'm in the box, and then I watch the secondary because there's enough TV delay. You can watch the secondary, and then you can look up at the TV to watch the play and see what happened as far as line of scrimmage stuff. Because a lot of stadiums, the TV copy is too tight.
But unless you've got the overhead or the end zone camera, unless you've got the end zone camera, you've got half the line that it's really tough to be able to see hand placement and like positioning and things like that. So a
lot of myself included, you can cheat in the booth when you're calling the game, because I'll do with Bud exactly what he said. You can watch the play develop, routes develop, and they have a return monitor in your booth that's usually almost 2 seconds delayed. So you can be watching downfield. If you miss some sort of block up front, you can look really quick and catch the number. If there's a holding call, you can kind of catch it sometimes. So you sound like a genius. Get a little bit of a cheat sheet up there in the box.
I like that delay in the press box too. Yeah. Watch the field. Then
is that how Tony Romo does it?
No, it's about tendencies and tape and film study. Tom, where do you want to go?
Oh
yeah. Is anybody else in on Florida State? No.
Is Tom going to fight it?
I know.
We had some faces made. Okay. All right.
The homerism of that pick between you two is just absolutely disgusting. It's whatever. I'm going to go with Illinois over 6.5.
The homerism.
You got to be kidding me.
I feel like, disrespect is a good way that I would put the way Illinois is being treated. I think I understand where it comes from because of their history, and people just kind of wondering, if they could do it again, if it was just kind of a one-year wonder. But they can do it again. Like, they're going to go bowling and they're going to win 7 games. They could win 8 games. They could win 9 games. Defensively, I know they lost a lot in the secondary, but their front 7 is still spectacular. They have one of the best defensive lines in the country. They have depth on the offensive line. They have depth at running back. They have more producers at the receiver position than they had last year. And I think with Luke Altmaier, well, I don't think he's going to be as consistent as DeVito because he doesn't have that kind of experience. He's got a better arm for pushing the ball vertically down the field, which is something they sorely lacked last year. And I think is something that in the Big Ten is effective, especially in the West, because most teams aren't able to do it. So I think this team is winning at least 7 games. I think they're going to compete for the Big Ten West Division title again. So give me the Illini over 6.5.
Speaking of homers,
I had it on my sheet, so I have to do it.
Wait, are you in too?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Fight.
Oh no, wrong one.
No. Bad vibes.
Early. Here we go. All right. This is early season. Gonna have some
You know what, Chip? If Illinois goes 6-6, I am blaming that button hit right there. It's all on you. Bad tone setter.
Yeah, Bud, what's just everything Tom said?
Basically, yeah. And I just think that they are. I just like them a little bit better than I do some of these other perceived like upper mid-level teams in the Big Ten. And I trust Illinois to comfortably get to a bowl game. I just think 7 comes up a lot, like very often.
You don't get blown out of games when you've got one of the best defensive lines in the conference. It's going to be in the country, sure, but you are not going to find yourself in a position against anybody on this schedule where you're just like totally outclassed. So yeah, give me Illinois to win more games than they lose.
There's a lot of talk about Johnny Newton, a lot of talk about Keith Randolph, but the only member of that defensive line to make Feldman's freak list who deserves to be there because he is an absolute freak, Gabe Akis, is somebody that you're going to, if you don't know that name yet, you're going to know it after this season.
All right. 2 overs, 1 under. Let's go to the OG. I gotta stay committed to the very first win total that I just went out and had to lock up. And it's moved, but there is still a major sports book where you can still get the 8. I know they're 8.5 elsewhere, but you ain't going to lose with the schedule so soft as what Jeff Brom and the Louisville Cardinals are going to face with 9 games where your fans, either because they are home games or they are drivable neutral site games, and those neutral site games against Georgia Tech in, first full year of a new head coach, and Indiana potentially in its last year with a head coach. Jack Plummer coming in, running an offense that he's very comfortable with, good wide receiver pickups from the transfer portal to be able to plug and play and continue that line of succession of Jeff Brom offenses producing great wide receivers. So I'm going Louisville over 8 wins.
It's just extremely related to several other plays I plan to play. So I'm not like it. Yeah. Not going to fight it.
Yeah. I don't trust it.
I did bet them to the ACC. So.
Yeah. I just, it seems old at this point. We did the ACC win total so long ago. The Louisville schedule was the buzzword of like a month ago at the ACC football kickoff, but I still got to go back to it, man. I'm not going to leave it on the floor when it was one of the first win totals of the entire board that jumped out to me. So I'm glad we still get an 8, and I'll go ahead and take that over.
They opened this so long ago. Unnecessary Roughness still had a sports book to talk about. Okay. And it opened at 7. And now, now you got to bet 8. Like it's, it's ridiculous.
All right, Danny.
I need an under. I can't believe we waited this long to discuss this one, but there's a name that has been the hottest name in college football. I've said it the minute I saw the number come out. Let's go to Colorado. Deion Sanders, Shador Sanders. My guy, Coach Brewster, who's out. Stand up. Sit down, Coach. You're going under. 3.5 under. I still got to see it to believe it. I think it starts off rough, and I think it comes off the rails a little bit. Again, let me be clear. I think long-term it works. I like what Deion is doing. I think he had to do it by necessity, but I think the rough start kind of becomes too much for them to overcome. What have we seen from programs that have really sold themselves on going out and buying players and getting players to come in, the quick fix, the hired assassins? Think Texas A&M, thinks Miami, now Colorado, like the most outspoken of this way. If things start to go south, the tendency is you throw in the towel and you kind of start resetting for next year mentally, and you throw in the towel. I think the rough start does them in. Give me under 3.5 for Colorado.
So if there's a team with like a greater variance of outcomes, I'm not really sure I've seen it. I will say I do have a little side action with Paul, our guest from yesterday, who supported St. Jude. He gave me a little 50-1 shot on them to make a bowl. So I am excited to see if I'm wrong about Colorado. Maybe I'm like very wrong, and in either direction. Well,
Same. I'll happily admit if I'm wrong and they go 6 and whatever or higher. I'll happily admit it.
They beat Nebraska. They beat TCU in Nebraska. Got Danny.
That's off the table. We'll just blow that one up. I might try to hack into the spreadsheet and delete it.
No, we're not.
If you want access, just ask.
You just can't hack the YouTube.
Danny, Coach Brewster's Simon says builds team culture. Doesn't matter if the head coach doesn't want it. It's a totally effective.
I like Tim Brewster. He was with me in Denver. I had we had a back and forth. It wasn't about him. It was the difference in college and pro coaching. That's all it was.
All right, Tom.
Sit down, Brew.
Sit down. You're going under.
All right, I'm going to go with another one I was pretty emphatic about when we talked about it during the SEC West show. I got burned on it last year, but I'm right back at it again because I like this roster. I like the coach, the upgrade they've made on the coaching side. Give me Auburn over 6.5. I know that they're in the tougher, they're in a very tough division, but I think that they are being underestimated, and I think a couple other teams in that division are being overestimated, and I think Auburn's going to surprise some people with some wins this year. They've got a very difficult schedule, but I think they're going to do well in their non-Georgia, Alabama, and what's the other game that they're playing? Whatever. In those, other than those 3 big LSU, I think they're going to do well in their other 9 games. So Auburn over 6.5.
Chip, let me hear some children. I think Tom said this perfectly. Like, I don't know if Mississippi State, Ole Miss, or Arkansas are going to be a lot worse than everybody thinks, but I'm confident that one of them will, and that's sort of all the Tigers need, right? You need one of those games to be a layup, essentially. Like by the time that it gets played, it's like, okay, like Auburn's got this one. A game that now they might be a small underdog in or a small favorite in. All of a sudden, like, oh yeah, that team is quit. The chemistry on that team is bad. Whatever. Auburn's favored by 12, and then we go cash this ticket. I like to bet on the teams that plop down the money at the counter of the transfer portal, right? And I think Auburn has really gone after high level players here at a lot of spots. So yeah, I went over on the win total show. I'm going over on the win total lock show. 6.5. Let's lock it up.
Give me Latifa.
Oh,
I'm with you guys identically on a lot of the reasons. I think you saw it was awful hire. I'm stating the obvious, Brian Harsin. I think Hugh Freeze fits. I think he's been here before. He knows how to win games here. I'm going over.
Love it. All right. I need an under. There's too many overs on this board. And there's a team.
We're just the optimistic group.
There's a team that actually plays Auburn, and I think they're going to lose that game. And I think they're going to lose a lot more games. In fact, I think they're going to lose like 8 games, maybe even 9 games. Let's go with the Cal Golden Bears under. And I need some, there are 5.5s out there. They are a little bit pricey. I would go 5-2. Can I get a verdict on can I get a verdict on which number I'm locking in?
Well, what's the juice on the 5.5?
Minus 158 at FanDuel.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it. Like,
Cal,
how many college ball shows actually keep records? You know what I'm saying? Like we do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We're going Cal under, strong under. I think Auburn's a loss. At Washington's a loss. Oregon State's a loss. At Utah's a loss. USC's a loss. At Oregon's a loss. UCLA's a loss. There's no Colorado on the schedule. There's no Arizona on the schedule. They literally are drawing the 5 best teams in the conference in conference play. There are 5 top 25 teams from the Pac-12 right now in the preseason AP top 25 poll, and Cal's going to have to play all of them. I mean, yeah, you've got toss-ups against Arizona State, which might be starting Jaden Rashada. You've got toss-up against a Washington State, which the bowl team type caliber right there. And when you factor in just sort of the overall trajectory of this program right now, I do not feel confident that they are going to be able to do this. Heck, at Stanford could get dicey. I mean, at North Texas could get dicey. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure Cal is going to be favored in those games, but I see a lot of losses. And again, 7, I feel very confident penciling in right there. And so give me Cal under 5.5.
Is Justin Wilcox first coach fired this fall? Ask Zach. No, Cal doesn't care enough to fire the coach during the season.
Yeah, I will stick to my October 12th Thunderdome game. Thursday night, it's Houston, West Virginia. Loser fires their coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. For performance-related reasons, obviously. Like you may have a scandal that we don't know about.
Do you know about was that you? Like,
no, literally.
Okay.
No, I
just sits on
I do not. Silverstein, do not jump in my DMs and ask me if we need to report on stuff. No, I have no idea about any scandals right now at all.
Maybe if there's a major college football coach dealing with this. No, just kidding. Yeah. All right, so let's coming up on the other side, we continue with our locks for the 2023 season. Next.
In case you're new here, we're here to make history. We are more than the names on our back. We're the team on the front, the country on our shoulders, the city behind us, and the fire inside us. The best in the world. We got us. We don't just play the world's game. We run it.
All right. And again, our thanks to Cole for pulling together
mug shots. Look at those glamour shots. Went to the mall for that one.
Danny and I are the only ones who wore ties. We're classy.
Right. All right, Bud. So far on the board has Auburn over 6.5, Illinois over 6.5, Florida State over 9.5, Florida over 5.5, and Iowa over 8. I've got Illinois over 6.5, Minnesota under 7.5, Penn State over 9.5, Louisville over 8, Cal under 5.5. Danny's got Auburn over 6.5, Florida State over 9.5, Florida over 5.5, Iowa over 8, and Colorado under 3.5. Tom's on Auburn over 6.5, Illinois over 6.5, Minnesota under 7.5, and Michigan State over 4.5. Tom, why don't you take us where you would like to go?
Let's see here. How many Big 12 locks do we have so far?
I've got a couple that I need to draw. So let's go there.
Let's go to the Big 12. You just mentioned the first coach being fired. Well, here's my bet. West Virginia under 5.5. Just bad vibes. Like, I don't think this is a terrible team roster-wise, but just coming off of last season with the idea that Neil Brown needs to win right away, with that Thunderdome game you mentioned against Houston early in the year, I just feel like if things get off to a slowish start, that it's just going to continue to spiral for the entire season. So give me the Mountaineers under 5.5.
You are in a must-win season, and the only certified win is Duquesne. You need to be able to stack wins, get to a bowl game, and I see lost to Penn State, lost to Pitt, lost to Texas Tech, lost to TCU, maybe loss at UCF, at Oklahoma, at Baylor. I mean, Oklahoma State might get you as well. Forget 5-7. This thing looks like 3-9, especially if you consider the chances of a midseason coaching change. Strong under on this one for me as well. Steering clear. You love the JUCOs. Bud's going to tell me this JUCO depth chart has got a lot of guys that he saw in Florida at a camp who are going to be able to lead West Virginia to the postseason.
I don't have enough confidence in my numbers on some of these other low power rated Big 12 teams to be sure that, like, are we sure that they're like not favored at home over BYU? Like, are we sure that they're not favored like at Houston, or
Cincinnati at home?
Yeah, I get it, and I certainly am not going to fight it. I just can't lock it up. I don't know.
Bad vibe. I listen. All I had it on the sheet, but Tom hit it on the nail there. Hit the nail on the head there. Vibes are not great. I had a great moment of realization when I was we were doing the Big 12 win totals. We'll remember that Wade joined us, and I had an over for Oklahoma State, but Wade pointed out that it's you're only asking Mike Gundy to go like 4-5 in conference play. Mike Gundy is a 61% winning percentage in Big 12 play across his entire career. The number of seasons that he wins he loses more games than he wins is like few and far between. They just like every 3 or 4 years or so. And so when you have Central Arkansas and Arizona State and South Alabama as your non-conference schedule, you're really just asking, and by the way, they avoid Texas and they avoid Texas Tech and they avoid TCU and they avoid Baylor. So with all those top half Big 12 teams out of the schedule, you're now asking Mike Gundy to simply go out there and win 4 out of 9 Big 12 games. I would trust Mike Gundy with 4 rattlesnakes and 7 actual Cowboys to go out there and win 4 out of 9 Big 12 games. We ride with the Pokes. Oklahoma State over 6. Oh, Oklahoma State over 6.
Wait, what?
6.5.
Yeah, 6.5.
6.5.
But yes, lock agreement with you there.
All right.
Latifah.
Oh, yes.
Oh. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Texas Tech is as good as all the writers think, but they're not on the schedule, right? Do you know who is? Iowa State and Okie State gets them early. So to me, I would much rather play Iowa State early rather than late this season. And then you play Houston real late in the year. Think that's a big crowd in Houston when Oklahoma State comes to town? What's the crowd split on that? Probably 50-50, right? A lot of kids from
Oklahoma State fans. There.
Yeah. Lot of kids from Texas end up going to Oklahoma State. Cincinnati at home kind of late in the year. I bet this team to win the Big 12. So it was 60-1. I kind of felt like we've seen Gundy almost do it, 2 years ago when Baylor got him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the over here.
What was
Oklahoma State has won 7 games for the last 16 seasons, at least 7 games.
6.5.
Man, let's go.
Let's go.
The world is about to feel something that they never felt before.
To infinity and beyond.
Let y'all know.
Tom said it best, and Bud hammered it home. Like, the wheels aren't going to fall off that bad. He's been a consistent winner, and I think the upside is there. I think this is the time to get Oklahoma State. I mean, they were an inch away from being in the playoff 2 years ago. It's pretty wild. I love it.
I'm gonna Bedlam boy right here. I'll just go ahead and take the wheel and tell you I'm also on the Oklahoma over, kind of like we talked about in the Big 12 podcast. I looked at the Oklahoma total and the Oklahoma depth chart, and I was like, oh man, 9.5. Are we sure that this is a 10-win team? And against a lot of schedules in the Big 12, I'm not sure if it's a 10-win team. But against this schedule, I definitely think that Oklahoma can go out there and win 10 games. I think that you're looking at Arkansas State, SMU, at Tulsa, Cincinnati, Iowa State, UCF, at Kansas, West Virginia, BYU. I mean, obviously the Texas game is going to be a little bit of a toss-up. They will be an underdog there. TCU, that game is actually going to be in Norman. It is not a team that in other conference, if they will not be able to go play their 2024 schedule with this roster and win 10 games, but against this schedule in 2023, I've got Oklahoma as a 10-win team. So I'll go Oklahoma over 9.5.
Not joining you.
I'm going to fight this.
Yeah.
Oh.
Fight.
If their defense doesn't improve as much as their fans think, SMU is losable. Now, I'm not picking SMU to beat them, but that is a losable game for sure. Iowa State, again, early, I certainly get that. I like Texas over them. Do they play enough defense to beat UCF? I think so, but I don't know so. At Kansas, they handled Kansas last year. We already bet over on Oklahoma State, so this is kind of correlated to that. At BYU, I mean, again, that's a win. That's probably a double-digit favorite, but are you 2 touchdowns? at BYU and then TCU into the year. I could see 3 slip-ups here. They didn't show enough last year to think that they're definitely that well coached. I mean, like maybe they will, but we'll see. Finally got to fight.
Yeah, a little bit of blood on the board. Would love to see it. All right, Danny.
All right, I can go back to the SEC, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I texted you guys. I was asking about the odds because I found this number at 7.5, and I thought it was stealing. Again, one of the bigger moves of the offseason was what Jimbo Fisher did at College Station, bringing in Bobby Petrino. I think it works. I think a fresh set of eyes, a fresh bit of insight, just a little bit more of an open offense. Bobby Petrino's had a lot of success with quarterbacks. I think Connor Wegman's really good. I think the roster is really stacked. I did talk to Billy Lucci last week, so I might have had a little bit of a
he got dosed.
Yeah, that's true. But he pointed out, I mean, they might have one of the better defensive lines in the SEC, and if it's in the SEC, it might be in the country. I mean, Bud, they're a blue chip ratio team, right? I mean, they are talented. If it comes together, I think they'll be 5-0 when Alabama comes to town. That'll be really curious. We've seen that before, but I'll go Texas A&M over.
Shout out to Alex Stefanich for his comment there.
What? I feel like, I don't know. Oh, okay, we're going to do it. All right. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, we kind of use Danny as the sounding board in our group chat. Like sometimes we'll have some extremely banger tweets that I'm like, can the public see this? And if Danny says no, I wouldn't tweet this. Then we're like, all right, I'm not going to tweet it. So Danny's kind of like the firewall between us and some amazing comedy.
Alex is a real friend, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, no, like for real. Like not just a friend of the show. Yeah. Shout out to Alex. Thanks for hanging out and watching live. Get kind of good, getting some good LOLs from the crowd. All right. I can rock with it. Text it. Anybody else on it?
No.
All right. Tom.
I'm done trusting Texas A&M. All right. I hate to do this to you, Chip. North Carolina under 8.5. That team, I tweeted this out. I was tweeting some stats, like doing research for that betting guide I had to write earlier this week. North Carolina played in 7 games that were 3 points or less decided by either win or lose, and they went 5-2 in those 7 games. They had a lot of close game kind of luck that I think could even out, and I know Drake May is really good, but I don't really like a whole lot about that team other than Drake May. And maybe he can lead them to 9 wins by himself, but that defense is just, I have no faith in it. So UNC under 8.5.
Yeah. Do you know what school did not have anyone on Bruce's freaks list?
North Carolina.
UNC.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's a little bit different, I guess. All right. No, I do not disagree with that take right there, because 8-4 is still a very North Carolina season.
Mm-hmm.
So it would not be a bad. If you were under 7.5, I'd be a little bit alarmed, but under 8.5, you're not going to hear any pushback from me on that one. Boston College over 5.5. It's a bowl team. They got a really, really good defensive line. Even marginal increases in injury luck on the offensive line are going to mean that they're going to be able to get back to doing what Boston College wants to do. It's what Jeff Hafley wants to do, be able to establish that line of scrimmage. We don't have Zay Flowers anymore, but I don't think that's so much that I believe that they're not going to be able to get a passing game going. Obviously, they pick up Ryan O'Keefe from UCF. I don't think that's a plug and play replacement, but I do think that's a valuable add to the offense. I just, there was a Bud dropped it maybe even 2 years ago that you look at, and maybe this applies to his Florida. It does apply. He mentioned it for the Florida pick. If there are 5.5s out there for teams that you can find something to really believe in, I like being able to get that over, because that's a team that's trying to get to a bowl. So give me Boston College over 5.5.
I definitely don't hate that either. I have so many picks.
Do you really have to go soon?
Yeah, I do have a flight. So
okay.
Like,
do you have clear?
12:05. 12:00.
Okay. Throw them out there.
I did not have clear. All right. let's do the rest of the Power 5 stuff, and then I'll hit you with like the machine gun sicko mode, I guess. I'm going to take UCLA over 8.5. When has Chip Kelly had a quarterback-dependent offense?
Mm-hmm.
Never. When has Chip Kelly had a defense? I think this year. So I like Chip Kelly and UCLA. Everybody's kind of talking about, the big whatever in the Pac-12, Utah and Oregon and Washington and USC and Oregon State. I'm like, what? What about UCLA? Like, UCLA can't be as good as Oregon State. UCLA beat the brakes off Washington last year physically. I don't know. I mean, I bet them 40-1 to make the playoff. Just in turn, like if they really, really hit, maybe Dante Moore, if he ends up being the starter, could be like a total stud, and then Chip's got a phenom quarterback or something like that. I think they can go 9-3. They could also go like 5-7 because the offensive line falls apart. So there is some concern.
No, listen, I think that the offense is still going to be awesome. I think they are like a top half of the Pac-12 team, and that you draw the line after UCLA, and there is a huge drop when you get down below them to the next team. Somebody pointed out during the Pac-12 win total show, as I was explaining my over, the Chip Kelly doesn't care about non-conference games principle is a little bit terrifying. I understand that
South Alabama last year.
Yeah, I understand that Coastal Carolina has a coaching change. We don't have Jamie Chadwell anymore, but we do have Grayson McCall. And you're going to San Diego State, which is definitely going to try to take the air out of the ball and win that game, 27-24 if possible, maybe even less than that. But in general, I am high on this UCLA team. No pushback from me on that one.
Love to hear it. Let's go.
Let's see. So Tom, how many do you have left?
I have 6 left.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bud, how many do you have left?
See, I need to make a check on Illinois there because I already agreed with that one. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sicko modes. 1, 2, 3. I have 5 sicko modes, and that's it. I have no more major plays.
All right, well, let's all right, hold on. He'll be playing for you.
Time for sicko mode. Let's go. I'm a little bit lower on some of the teams in the bottom of the Sun Belt. If things go wrong, they could be like UMass, UConn. That's kind of like sicko mode of a sicko mode. Let's do this thing. All right. So Virginia under 3.5. My thoughts on the offensive coaching there. East Carolina under 5.5. I rode that team a lot last year. I just think every team begins anew. Colorado State over 4.5. I bet them to win the Mountain West at 40-1. I think there's still some like 25s out there, which are certainly interesting. Louisiana under 7.5. I think Napier kind of had something special there. I'm not sure they're special anymore. Certainly they don't suck. And in Charlotte over 3, just kind of the uncertainty principle. I have no idea what I'm going to get with this team. At least Biff Poggi knows these players because he coached them in high school. So maybe there's that. And am I really sure that Tulsa and UAB and all those teams are better than them? Not really. I think there's a likelihood that they are. They're probably the worst team in the league, but I'm not totally convinced of it. So give me that potential upside. Those are your sicko mode plays. Let's go sweep. Sicko mode sweep.
Do you have any Tom, do you have any agreement or fights for any of the sicko modes?
I have an agreement on the Colorado State over 4.5.
So
I think that team takes a big step forward this year compared to what we saw last year.
They were playing better at the end of the year than they were at the beginning. They got hammered by Michigan, but they were at least starting to get things together once Mountain West play started. But are you having to do any of the overrated, underrated stuff that's going on right now on the editorial side?
We've done some through 24/7, not on the CBS side.
We have to do one overrated team and one underrated team for every single conference, including the Mountain West, the American Athletic Conference. And Colorado State's definitely my underrated team for the Mountain West. And I think they're going to double their win total and flirt with bowl eligibility this year.
Who is even rated in the Mountain West? Like, how do we decide an overrated team?
So
do you have to basically go Boise, or are some people still rating Fresno really high?
So what you have to do, everyone's going to some people just say whatever. I'm not like shaming them for that. It's a difficult assignment that you're just going to get roasted by a fan base, right?
Yep.
You're just choosing who you're going to get roasted by. But what I do is I compare to the preseason order of finish, because that is or the top 25 poll when it's appropriate. Because then I can say, all right, the Mountain West media has it like this. I've got it like this. Here are my differences. Boom. That's how I do my overrated, underrated. So it's very difficult, but I like the Colorado State play for both y'all.